Hey everyone, Brian here from So Wizard. There's a trend going around right now on Letterboxd and film Twitter circles where you pick your favorite movie for every year that you've been alive. For me, that's one movie from every year since 1989. This 36 movies seems like a lot to make one person sit through. So it breaks pretty evenly at 18. This will be 1989 to 2006. These are not the best movies of their respective years, just my favorite. So first up in 1989, because I was there for 3 months of it. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Some say it's best the trilogy, and there isn't a really correct answer one way or the other. This movie is perfect summer blockbuster fun. Ford and Connery have perfect chemistry together, there's incredible set pieces, and it's a perfect send-off to one of the best film trilogies of all time. So the studio decided to make 2 more of these goddamn things, and we all know how those turned out. But, credit where it's due, the new video game for Xbox is fantastic. For 1990, Goodfellas. Really, not a lot has to be said that hasn't already been said by smarter than me. Arguably one of Scorsese's best, it's easily on Mount Rushmore of mob movies, and it's still in contention for the best gangster movie of all time up there with The Godfather. Easily makes my list. 1991, T2, Judgment Day, the quintessential action sequel talked about the same sentence as Empire Strikes Back and The Dark Knight. Still the benchmark for action films and ruined any chance of an actual good sequel, but Lord knows that 4 attempts in, they're still going to keep trying. Next up, 1992, Reservoir Dogs. And I am in the minority of people who prefer this over Pulp Fiction, thinking it's early Tarantino's best work, and I will die on that hill. Tightly paced, well-written, very unique whodunit told from the aftermath, working itself backwards from a pretty unique perspective, gives us some of the most memorable characters through Michael Madsen and Steve Buscemi, Harvey Keitel. All coming together, to me, is just a better use of Tarantino's talents than Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction, I think, has just been blown out of proportion by the fan base. 1993, Jurassic Park. I mean, what needs to be said? This movie is a masterpiece. Every kid loves dinosaurs. And when the last movie came out, we were able to watch this before Dominion, I think it was, which only made me appreciate it even more because even 30 years later, it is still a vastly superior movie in every way. There's a new one coming out this summer with ScarJo and that dude from Wicked that dances on books that I keep seeing on YouTube, but it still won't dethrone the OG. I just hope it's just better than the last 2. 1994, we have Clerks, and this is my gateway drug. This movie is why I love movies the way that I do. I think if we go back to 2006, Comedy Central used to play movies on weekends because Clerks 2 was coming out that summer. They were playing Dogma and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back a ton, albeit heavily edited for cable. After using vintage 2006 internet at my high school, I found out those characters were introduced in Clerks and that my public library had a DVD copy available to rent, so I snuck off campus, went across the street and checked it out. I probably must have watched it dozens of times. Their version that I had was 3 discs, one of which was a documentary, one was the theatrical cut, and one was the original Sundance cut. Each had their own unique commentary track, so I probably watched both of them with and without the commentary track before I returned it. I actually still have that DVD. My friend gave it to me that Christmas, and it made me love DVDs to the point where I now have as many as I do. Just the idea of making movies and chatting about movies with all of you, a lot of that is due to me watching this small indie black and white film. 1995, Heat. I was going to put Batman Forever on here. It's fun, and I just really like Nicole Kidman in that movie. I'm still thinking about Baby Girl from last year. I went with the other Val Kilmer flick, Heat from Michael Mann. Not much to say on this. Michael Mann is a great director. He's made, crime thriller after crime thriller, be it Manhunter, Thief, Collateral, which is fantastic. But this one stands out to me because it's equal parts shootout with actually really solid gunplay. And the diner scene between De Niro and Pacino is just iconic. Nolan has praised Heat numerous times as that was the film that really helped create The Dark Knight into what it turned out to be. 1996, From Dusk Till Dawn, Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's first collaboration, an epic vampire B-movie that put George Clooney on the map for a lot of people outside of knowing him as the original Dr. McDreamy from ER. Apparently, this is the movie that Joel Schumacher saw that made him offer him the role of Batman for Batman and Robin, which didn't end great for anyone involved in that, but Clooney's career came back stronger. The opening gas station scene alone is just perfection, and if you're looking for a good B-movie to watch on the weekend, definitely check that one out. 1997, Goodwill Hunting. Again, not a lot to say on this one. Solid script and performances from Ben and Matt. Of course, the legendary performance from Robin Williams. Damon just did an interview where he talked about how they were aiming to get Robin Williams, but if they couldn't get him, they were trying to find an A-lister to help sell it to the studio system. But they had versions of the script for someone like Denzel. They had someone around, just different actors, and Robin Williams was their first choice, and it ended up working out for all parties involved. Feels like cheating having a Boston movie in here, being that we're all from the Northeast, but it actually deserves to be here, and that's all I really got to say on the matter. 1999, Fight Club. Oh, Fight Club. The ever-quotable movie that every bro in college loves but misses the entire point of. David Fincher crafted one of the best movie twists in Mr. X, still talked about to this day, up there with the likes of The Sixth Sense. The thing that really makes me love Fight Club as I rewatch it, outside of Norton's performance and duality, is definitely the cinematography and editing of it. The subliminal flashes of Tyler, the cigarette burns when they're talking about Tyler's profession as a projectionist, which is actually at the exact moment of an actual real change for anyone that was a projectionist at the time. It's not as good as the book, but it is what it is, and it's definitely worth the list. 2000, The Way of the Gun, a criminally underrated gem from Christopher McQuarrie, who would later become best friends with Tom Cruise and make banger after super underappreciated and badly released before Oppenheimer and Barbie banger, and hopefully this summer's biggest banger. If you haven't watched this one, I won't spoil much for you. Follows two criminals who kidnap a surrogate mother and the absolute shit show that entails from doing so. If you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor and do so immediately. 2001, Blackhawk Down. So this one's a unique pick. A little known fact for you guys, because I haven't been here that long, I'm actually a vet. I spent 8 years in the infantry, and this and another movie on this list both are, to me, the most accurate depictions of modern conflict put on screen, telling the true story of Operation Gothic Serpent following a Ranger Company and Delta operators in a brutal fight for survival that happened in October of 1993. This movie is on par with Saving Private Ryan in terms of accuracy, especially for the time. When I went through basic training, they were still showing us scenes of urban combat and actually urban combat field care for medics because of how accurate it was. This movie has everyone in it. This was an Oppenheimer level ensemble of people before they made it big. Josh Hartnett, Ewan McGregor, Tom Hardy's in this. Ion Gufford's in it. Jason Isaacs. All of them are getting huge roles here that would later go on to help them make it in bigger and better projects. 2002, Catch Me If You Can. 2002 was actually a tough year because between Attack of the Clones, Spider-Man, and Signs, a lot of movies got kind of pushed to the side or underappreciated. But for me, it goes to Catch Me If You Can. And I take it on the win solely for repeat watchability. I was still hating on Leo as my sister had left me to suffer through Titanic mania at the end of the 90s. And this was the start of me realizing he was more than a flash-in-the-pan heartthrob that would fizzle out and do nothing with his career. He and Hanks have some great scenes together, and it's awesome to see some early career cameos from the likes of Jennifer Garner, Elizabeth Banks, and Amy Adams. 2003, The Last Samurai, the uber-controversial Tom Cruise white savior flick, the modern of Dances with Wolves at the time before James Cameron made them blue. What really makes this movie for me is Ken Watanabe's performance and Cruise's dedication to making sure that everything was done respectfully at the time in 2003. Edward Zwick, the director, had a lot of responsibility to make sure that it wasn't culturally insensitive, and on top of that, they made some incredible fight choreography. There was a lot of risk and a lot of reward for this one. 2004, The Girl Next Door. This is a movie that recently has come back into my life in a big way. It was one that every time I talk about it with either Adam or a couple of my other buddies, the person that I brought it up to would immediately stop what they were doing and go, "Oh man, that was such a great movie, and I just haven't seen it in years." And it really is a great movie that people just forget about. Very modern John Hughes flick with awesome up-and-comers, including a pre-Justified Timothy Olyphant, James Remar as a Hugh Hefner type, and a very, very young Paul Dano. If you haven't seen this one in years, definitely check it out. 2005, Revenge of the Sith. So the summer of 2005 is when I really started going to the movies a lot more. I was a sophomore in high school. I saw probably something every weekend at the Rotterdam 6 Theater. I probably saw Revenge of the Sith there at least 8 times. To finally see the Star Wars saga completed as was advertised in 2005 was something I've actually gotten to experience that twice, but this time was more satisfying, so it wins the spot. At that point, I followed all the EU lore for the Clone Wars, be it comics, novels, the amazing Genndy Tartakovsky 2D series that Adam and I should probably do a video on for his other channel that I will shamelessly plug right here. Revenge of the Sith just edged out Batman Begins and Red Eye. So Cillian Murphy had a solid year in 2005, but for me, it goes to Revenge of the Sith for finally getting to see the Star Wars saga completed in George Lucas's way, before Disney would buy it and everything that came from that. And last for this part, 2006, Casino Royale. Guys, haven't known each other long, but I really love this movie. And I mean, I really, really love it. I've probably owned 7 versions of it on physical, 3 versions of the Fleming novel, 2 making of books, a set of poker chips from the casino, both original posters, and 1 spare of the final that I took when I worked my first job all the way back at 2006. When I got my LTC, my first gun was a Walther P99 solely because it was the gun from Casino Royale, and I even got the terrible sweet holster that you can never actually do anything with. I love this movie. It is a perfect movie to me. It delivers on everything that I want. It is the better gritty reboot that Batman Begins did in the year before. Craig owns the role. It was coming off of Die Another Day, which was the Batman and Robin of the 007 franchise. Everyone thought Bond was done, and they came back with director Martin McDonagh, who also directed Mask of Zorro, and he just delivered. He'd also done GoldenEye, so he had saved the Bond franchise twice. Hopefully he'll get to direct the next reboot and save it 3 times. Everything that feels dated in other action movies does not age in this. Parkour gets joked about when it's done in movies now, and it's still a perfect opening chase sequence. Craig's great in the role. He would have his ups and his downs. We'll talk about that in another pick later on. But this movie, on top of being just my favorite movie, is easily the best movie of 2006. And that wraps up the first part, 89 to 2006. Tune back in next week, and I will do part 2, which will be 2007 through 2024. Looking forward to seeing you guys then.